Thank you so much for joining us online today. We are excited to celebrate Father's Day. I know it's not as big as Mother's Day, but we do want to honor the fathers and just say thank you to those men in our lives that have made a huge impact. I know for many, though, these holidays, they can be somewhat sad. We have loss and tragedy that comes into our lives. We have some fathers that maybe didn't live up to the mark, and that makes this day hard. But what I want to do for all of us today is I want to look at the story of one man in the Old Testament. So we're going to take a break from the Gospel of Luke. We actually were off last week, and thank you to Jared for jumping in while I was on vacation. So this is our second week from the Gospel of Luke. We will jump back in next week, but because it's Father's Day, I want to look at the life of Boaz. He's an Old Testament character found in the book of Ruth. He's a type or a foreshadowing of Jesus, so he's someone that lived in such a way that when you look at his life and what he did, specifically taking a foreigner, someone who should have been an outcast, and bringing her in, redeeming her, we see a foreshadowing of what Jesus is going to do for all of us, taking us who are sinners and outcasts and bringing us into the family, redeeming us, buying us back into the fold. We see that in Boaz, but there's also things, specifically three things, that we can learn from his life. And as we learn those and apply those, I'm saying we as men, okay, whether you're a father or not, but we as men, if we apply these to our life, if we apply these to the way that we lead and love our families, I think we are going to see rich, rich fruit come from not only our life, but from our families. So we're going to look at his life. We're going to unpack it. We're actually going to do a quick overview of the entire book of Ruth. It's only 4 chapters. We'll go very quickly, but you need to understand the context and the story to see how wonderful what this man did truly was. So here we go. Here's the setup of the story. In chapter 1 of the book of Ruth, there's a family living in Bethlehem. Okay, you've maybe heard of that from the Christmas narrative. There's a family living in Bethlehem, but there's a famine. We think it was caused by a drought. We're not completely sure, but there's no food. There's no food. And so what do you do when there's no food? You go to the place where there's food. And so there's a family. Naomi is the mother, Elimelech is the father, and they have 2 adult-age sons. They need to find food, and so they go to Moab. Now, Moab is a Gentile country, a couple hundred miles away. They have food. They go there. They set up tents. They try to make a life. Everything is great, except for within the first year, Elimelech, the father, he dies. We don't know why. We don't know what happened. But now it's Naomi, the mother, and the 2 sons. In the next 10 years, those 2 sons take Moabite wives. Okay, we have Ruth and Orpah that become the wives of the sons. You still have Naomi there. Life is going great until within a 6-month period, both sons pass away. So they've been in Moab for 10 years, but now they've buried all 3 men, and now the 3 women left, Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah, they hear that the food has come back in Bethlehem. It's time for them to return. And Naomi, the mother, looks at the 2 daughters-in-law, and she says, hey, go back to your family. You were faithful to my sons. I thank you for that, but you do not have to come to my land. You do not have to do this. I, in fact, am so bitter at God right now because he took away my sons. He took away my husband. That's her thought. I'm so bitter. I'm just going to go back and I'm going to live out my years. You go find husbands in your country and live the rest of your life. Have a blast. Ruth chapter 1, verse 13. This is what Naomi says. It is more bitter for me than for you. You've lost your husbands, but I lost my husband and my sons because the Lord's hand has turned against me. I don't feel like God cares for me anymore. And we'll see that that's just not ever possible in the rest of the story, but that's where she's at, and maybe many of you have been there as well. Ruth decides to stay with Naomi. Orpah decides to go back, but Ruth says this famous passage in Ruth chapter 1, 16 and 17. But Ruth replied, do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from you, because where you go, I'm going to go. And where you stay, that's where I'm going to stay. Your people are going to become my people, and your God is going to be my God. Where you die, that's where I'm going to die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. We're going to be together in eternity. It's a confession of faith. It's a beautiful moment. And that's the end of chapter 1. And in chapter 2, we meet Boaz for the first time, this type of Jesus, this amazing man. We're back in Bethlehem, and it's time for the harvest. Boaz is a large landowner, and Naomi, the mother-in-law, tells Ruth, hey, there's a custom in our land where you can go behind the harvesters, and anything they drop, you can legally just pick it up. If they leave it on the field, it's yours to take up. So I want you to go glean from the fields. We don't have a hope any other way. We have no way to feed ourselves. So just go pick up what they leave behind. And it's the provision of God that we see in the next few verses, because Ruth ends up in the field of Boaz, who happens to be a relative of Naomi and Elimelech. So she ends up in the right field, something they had prayed for. And Boaz sees Ruth out there working so hard, and he shows her favor. Boaz protects Ruth and provides for Ruth. And I know those are two things, but that's one of the things I think, men, we need to understand. Our role is to protect and provide. Ruth chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. So Boaz said to Ruth, my daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in any other field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the women, just as she's allowed to do. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you, the protection. And whenever you're thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled. That's the provision. I'm looking out for you. I see your diligence. I see your character, and I want to protect and provide. But Boaz doesn't stop there. He gives comfort. He gives comfort and care to Ruth. Boaz says, I believe that by you being here, the Lord is blessing you. He's starting to change that narrative. God is using Boaz to start to change the heart of Ruth and Naomi, to see that the Lord is not against them. He's actually for them. Ruth chapter 2, verses 13 and 14. May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord, she said. You have put me at ease by speaking kindly to your servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servants. I'm not even equal to one of your servants. At mealtime, Boaz said to her, come over here, have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar. Come eat with me. Come share this meal with me. He gives her comfort and care, even though she was not necessarily deserving of it. And actually, it would have been looked down upon by those seeing Boaz invite her to eat. But he doesn't care. He sees Ruth, and he knows that she needs help. She needs provision and protection. She needs comfort and care. And he allows Ruth to finish out the rest of the harvesting season. And she's able to provide for herself and her mother-in-law. When it's time to finish the harvest, Naomi pulls Ruth aside and says, they're going to winnow the barley tonight. So I want you to go to the winnowing floor, and I want you to find where Boaz lies down at night. I want you to mark that in your mind. And in the middle of the night, when he's in good spirits, I want you to go there, and I want you to lie down at his feet. Now, there's a purpose for this, and it's a custom that we would not understand. But what is looked for in this moment is for Boaz to cover over Ruth, to put his covering over her. If he is willing to do that, he's saying, I will accept you. I will take you in. And here's what happens in Ruth chapter 3, verse 9. Boaz wakes up. He feels this woman lying at his feet, and he says, who are you? I'm your servant Ruth. Humble. I'm your servant Ruth, she said. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a kinsman redeemer of our family. What that means is very simple. Since Boaz is in the line or the family clan of Elimelech, they need someone, Naomi and Ruth need someone to come in and claim the land of Elimelech for them, because women are not allowed to own property, okay? It's what it was 2,000 years ago. It's not the same now. Women cannot own property. They need a male family member to keep that parcel of land in the family name. And she's asking in a very overt way, through action, she's asking him to redeem them, to buy the property from Naomi so she gets the money. It stays in the family name. He is the rightful owner, but it is a huge request. And Boaz chooses to cover Ruth. He chooses to lay his garment over her. Ruth chapter 3, verse 11. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. We don't know at this point how long Ruth has been back in Bethlehem, but it cannot be more than a year. And she's already made a huge splash. Even though she's a foreigner, even though she's a pagan, the people see her heart and the willingness to stay with Naomi when that was not the wise decision. And he says, of course I'll redeem you. Of course I'll cover you. Of course I'll accept you. Everyone knows how great you are. He chooses to fulfill the role of kinsman redeemer, redeem the land and the family of Elimelech. Chapter 4, this is the end of it. Boaz knows there's another relative, though, who's actually first in line to redeem the property and the family. And so he goes to the city gate the next day and he meets with this man and he says, do you want the land of Elimelech? Will you redeem it? Will you buy it to keep it in the name? He goes, absolutely, I will. I'll take it. And at that moment, Boaz had to be crushed, going, I was willing to, but you're first in line. Boaz has one more trick up his sleeve. He says, but you know that by redeeming it, you get Ruth, the Moabite. And the man says, oh, well, then I can't redeem it because that could put my empire at jeopardy. I can't be bringing foreigners into my family. That's just not going to work for me. So all the city leaders heard this and they said, okay, he's out. Boaz, do you want to redeem the land? And he says, I will. Ruth chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, her former husband, Chilion and Mahlon. Those are the two sons. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife. I'm covering her. I'm taking her in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown. Today, you are all witnesses. And the way chapter 4 ends is really quite beautifully. Boaz takes Ruth as his wife. He's older, she's younger. He has never married. She was married and lost her husband. And together they are able to conceive and they give birth to Obed. That name probably doesn't ring many bells. Obed would become the father of Jesse. That name may ring a bell, but then Jesse would become the father of David, King David of Israel. And so the way the Lord works through famine, through obstacles, through persecution, through death even, to bring about his will, we see how this works. But it's Father's Day, so men, I'm talking to you today. What do we learn? The lessons that we can take away from Boaz. How can we be more like this amazing man? How can we be more like him to our children and to our spouses? Even if you don't have children or spouses yet, how can we still learn? Well, we've already covered them. First, guys, we need to protect and provide. Now, there is an element of physical protection that your family and your spouse needs, okay? Doesn't mean you have to be the strongest, but they need to know that they are secure. And that oftentimes means seeing your own weakness. I'll never forget driving home from Chicago, where my sister lives, and stopping in Tulsa. So we're almost home, but we need to eat dinner, and we pull off into a sketchy part of town, didn't know Tulsa very well, went into a restaurant. We see a fight break out as a homeless person tries to steal another man's cell phone. They literally get in a fight. I'm like gathering up my kids. Well, the person who tried to steal the cell phone is standing right outside the door. The cops haven't shown up yet. Paige is wanting to go. I'm wanting to go. But I know I've got 3 small children, and this guy will do anything because he's crazy. I just need to get to my car, and I need to get back down I-44. What do? You bow up? Do you get tough? No. I go find the biggest dude in the restaurant. I walked up to him. I said, sir, I have no problem asking for this. Will you walk my family to the car with me? Because I don't know what that guy's going to do. And I share that to go, protection doesn't mean you got to be the toughest guy in the room, but you've got to know when your family's in danger, and you've got to be willing to put yourself aside to protect them. However, I'm 16 years into marriage, and that's the only time I can remember ever feeling like I had to physically protect my family. Far more often, you need to emotionally protect your family, men. That is the danger that they are at every day. That is the danger that they face every day. You need to protect the hearts of your spouse and your children. And you do that by guarding your own heart, by protecting your own heart. and not allowing the filth of this world to come in and take root and then permeate through your family. You protect and guard your own heart so that you might protect and guard the hearts of your family. You need to be faithful and devoted to the Lord, not playing games. There's too much at stake. That's how you protect, but you also must provide. This comes through work, but I want you to understand this. It is not tied to your level of income. I've seen too many times men who make way too much money not actually provide for their families because they expect that that paycheck is enough. Yes, the paycheck is part of it, but it's about the work ethic. It's not about what you're getting paid to do. It's about the work ethic that your family sees. How are you adding value to your family? We don't live 70 years ago where mama stayed home with the kids. It's fine now for mama to go to work and for dad to stay home and work in the home to provide for the family in that way. It's not about your paycheck. It's about whether or not you are lazy. Men, don't be lazy. 1 Timothy 5:8 cannot say it any more clearly than this. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Whew. Dudes, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy that the Lord looks down upon and goes, you are lazy. Your family is dying around you because of your laziness. That's worse than being an unbeliever. Get up, get to work, provide. Your family needs it. And Ruth felt it multiple times as Boaz provided his own lunch, as Boaz, after the winnowing floor, filled up her sack with barley, as Boaz did everything he could to make sure she and Naomi were cared for. While you need to protect and provide, you also need to give comfort and care. Boaz showed Ruth favor with his words and his actions. And then, this is key, men, he backed them up. He didn't just say things that were flowery and beautiful. He backed them up with his actions. We need to speak kindly to our families because words are powerful. They have the ability to build up or to tear down, to arm or disarm. Your words matter. Have you ever destroyed one of your children with 5 words? I did it just yesterday. And my stomach is sick because of it. And I didn't mean to. I would never intentionally do that. But what came out of my mouth destroyed my oldest son. And I had to come back around for minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes and try to reaffirm and rebuild what I had destroyed with 5 words. Your words have power. We need to be understanding. We need to be comforting. Need to be sensitive. These are not words that typically men are supposed to think about, but comfort and care matter. We need to identify the emotional needs of our family and do our best to meet those needs. I don't know if you've ever said this to your spouse, but I know I have. Will you just please tell me what you need? Just tell me what you need. Like, I'll do anything, but I can't read your mind. Just tell me what you need. I think that's partially okay communication. But guys, can I say this? There's some foundational emotional needs that your children and your spouse all have, and you don't have to ask them. They just need it. They just need these things. Number 1, they need love. They shouldn't have to ask for your love. Your spouse and your children should never have to ask for your love. They need it. Trust me, they need it. When you think you've given enough, they still need more. They need your love. That sacrificial action that says, I will place your needs ahead of my own. That's what Boaz did. He redeemed the land of Elimelech for Ruth and Naomi. It was not a wise move. It was sacrificial. He did it because he loved. And you know what? Ruth loved him back because she saw what he did for her. She didn't have to beg him. She didn't have to do anything to earn it. He did it because it was right and because he loved. And the second emotional, foundational truth that everyone in your family needs is trust. They shouldn't have to ask to trust you. You should be trustworthy. And that comes primarily through being honest and following through with what you say you're going to do. And men, I don't know about you, but I like to write checks that I don't ever intend to cash. I'll get that done. That's no problem, babe. I wouldn't do that for you. And then 6 weeks later, she goes, remember when you said you'd do that? And I'm like, yep, we'll get that done. We'll get that done tomorrow. Don't you worry. And then 3 weeks after that, remember when you said you'd do that twice? Yes. That may seem little, but what it does is it diminishes trust. You need to do what you say you're going to do so that your children know that when dad says, I'll be there, you'll be there. And when dad says, I will take care of this, it will be taken care of. They don't have to worry anymore. They don't have to stress. They can trust you. Boaz did this. He said, I will redeem you. I will be your kinsman redeemer. And he did everything within his power to make that happen, and it happened. That forms trust. And finally, guys, we need to cover our families. And this is metaphorical, but this covering has two forms that your wife and your kids desperately need. It's the covering of leadership. Men, you are called to lead. You're designed to lead. That's how God instated it. It doesn't mean value. It's just leadership. You're not the domineering authority. You're the covering leader who presses in and pushes your family towards Jesus. That's how you're supposed to lead. And if you're not doing that, you need to make course corrections now. Because ultimately, that's what Boaz did. He was humble and obedient to the Lord. He did what didn't make sense. And because of that, he became a part of the lineage of Jesus. We need to cover our families with leadership, and we need to cover our families spiritually, making sure that Jesus, his word, and his purpose are the first priority in your home. You will correct when necessary, and make sure that you do not allow anyone or anything into your family that would allow their life with the Lord, their spirituality, to be distracted or diminished or destroyed. That is your job, to spiritually cover your family, and you will show them God's love through your life. That's the covering that you provide. But guys, I'll be honest, living up to Boaz is incredibly difficult. But it is the call of every man listening today. That's what you've been called to do. The truth is, however, that you can't be like Boaz until you know the true Boaz, which is Jesus. You can't do these things until you yourself have a foundational relationship with Jesus. You're walking with him. You're learning from him. You're faithfully and obediently following him. And that's how you are faithfully and obediently loving and caring for and covering your family. Your faith in pursuit of Jesus will allow you to be like Boaz, because you will be led by the better Boaz, which is Jesus. And just remember, Jesus' grace is sufficient for your failures. Because even walking with him in perfect unity, you're still not going to be perfect. But his grace is sufficient. Men, you are called to protect and provide, to care and comfort, to cover both through leadership and to cover spiritually. That's what you're called to do. And so today, I think it would be appropriate to pray this prayer. Men, you would pray, God, help me. God, help me be this for my family. I think it would be appropriate for you to pause right now to pray for your family. By name, to the Lord, to pray for your family. That's part of that spiritual covering. Wives, if you're listening today going, I didn't even need to watch. Well, wives and kids, can you pray for your husbands and your father? Can you pray that he would hear this message, whether he's listening or not? He would hear this message from the Lord, and he would become more like Boaz, more like Jesus. There's a woman that went to the church that I went to as a teenager. She prayed for 26 years for her husband. 26 years she prayed that he would come around. He played golf every Sunday, had no desire to spiritually lead anything, was an okay dude, like provided, went to work, but she prayed for 26 years. Her children, when they became of age, they started to pray for their dad that he would know the Lord. 26 years later, her prayer was answered. Now, I'm not saying it's going to take 26 years for you, but I am going to say this. Prayer works. Prayer unlocks the power of God, and if there's a man in your house that is not living up to this, having him listen to this message may or may not help. But asking the God of the universe to intercede and to move in and through him, that can make a change. I think at the end of it, what we learn from Boaz the most is that when we are faithful and obedient to the Lord, we make our family line great. And I just want to conclude today by asking you to pray that your family line, the generations that come from you, that they would be great. It doesn't have to be biological children. There's ways to impact the world, but it comes from being like Boaz. So, Father in heaven, I pray today that you would allow us to know what it takes to raise up men who will lead and love, who will care and provide, who will comfort, who will listen, who will meet needs. I pray that you will show us what it takes to be more like Boaz, to have the faith of Ruth, to ask you, Lord, to move even when it feels like we're in the darkest of seasons. God, I pray that you do that so that your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, that our families will be strengthened, that your name will go forth, and that you will receive all the glory. Jesus, we know that you can, so we ask that you do. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
seal the promise. Your buried body began to breathe, and out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. And came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe, and out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Oh, Jesus, yours is the victory. Praise the Lord who set me free. Hallelujah. Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord who set me free. Hallelujah. Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Oh God, you are my living hope. Praise be a weapon that silences the enemy. Let praise be a weapon that conquers all anxiety. Let it rise. Let praise arise. We see your name in the dark and it changes everything. We sing with all we are and we claim your victory. Let it rise. Let praise arise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side, forever lifted high. Let all creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Praise be the song that overcomes the raging sea. Let faith be the storm that calms the storm inside of me. Let it rise. Let faith arise. Yes. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side, forever lifted high. Let all creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, this is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds